podcast nonces assemble. So,
That's a broad category.
That sure is.
We're definitely not all here.
More and more.
Apologies have been submitted from.
All right, so for nearly a decade, we've occupied the same orbit as the men joining us at TGC HQ today. We are just a humble podcast of white, now middle-aged men who put a compelling core proposition to market about a decade ago. That proposition was, do people want the views of blokes with 0 test matches to their name? And it turns out the answer was sort of. And that's been good enough for all of us to pay rent, particularly when VPNs and male grooming products flick some coins at our feet in return. So it's our pleasure to cross over, John Edwards style, with guys who've played a very big role in rising the tide of talking into microphones without 50 to 100 test caps. It's the knowledgeable, it's the prolific Adam Collins and Geoff Lemon from The Final Word. Gentlemen, on behalf of all podcast nonces, welcome to the crossover. Welcome to TGC HQ.
What a nice thing to be able to do. I used to come on your show all the time in the early days when we were just, when we were all just finding our way, doing it on Zoom or some equivalent of that, trying to work out whether this was going to work, doing it very amateuristically.
Yep.
Yeah. Seeing
Geoff as
your
well.
studio.
Yep.
Yeah, of course. But now seeing what you've done here and what you've put together, it's remarkable. So it's a pleasure to be on your sofa.
What I'm really enjoying is that we've for a long time, say in the YouTube comments and so on, there are people who just assume that we must have beef. They're like, you're rivals.
Correctly.
Yes.
You must hate those pricks.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, well, let's can we start some beef?
Yeah.
today? Can we cultivate
Start.
the beef?
Okay, first of all, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Now, Collo.
Sorry, just like my mother-in-law asked the same question when Collo and his family came and stayed with us a few years ago down the coast. Just like, what's the deal with you guys? I don't know. So, yeah.
Collo, have you recovered from slaughtering 20 of the wettest coats of all time in your 20v1 challenge? And are you planning on taking the roadshow to college campuses in the future?
Yeah, it was playing Charlie Kirk. Playing Charlie Kirk was not something I anticipated. The 20.
Better be careful if you go back to the UK where you live.
Yeah,
That truly was
bless
1-0 in the Ashes before a ball was bowled.
Look, I had a fairly good understanding that if I went too hard, you could end up looking like a bully.
Yeah.
So I didn't go, but sometimes
Steve Waugh used to have that issue.
you can't help yourself. They're content creators, aren't they? So they're the TikTok guys who film themselves talking about what they've had for lunch or whatever. I don't really know what they do because I'm not on TikTok, so I'm too old for that. But
And they pretty much had to physically restrain me from launching onto the set to answer some of those questions. Will Ben Stokes be the greatest Test captain in history when he wins in Australia? I was like, give me the microphone. Like, I'm ready to battle rap this.
Well, I suppose there's different ways we could take that. We could get into the skew to propaganda and propagandizing and how it impacts young people in the UK when it comes to this England team. But why don't we just talk about us first, self-indulgently, and podcasts and stuff. How do you feel, Collo, about the fact that you have both of you do, but Collo, you have an enormous body of work underneath you, and you do too, Geoff, and we'll come to that as well. But just in relation to this cricket district piece, you're an author, broadcaster, journalist, podcast host, whatever else, and I suspect most people want to talk to you about these nonces that wanted to
skewer you.
Wanted to try and dunk on you in this Charlie Kirk style format.
Yeah.
Is that are you feeling old about social media and stuff? Because we did watching that as well.
I felt my age, absolutely. It dawned upon me when rocking up here today that we've been doing this for a decade together as well.
Yeah.
We've been going for a little bit more than 10 years. I think your podcast started a little bit after ours, but obviously you've enjoyed enormous success thereafter. But
1-0.
Yeah, we started first, therefore. But I remember when we first met, before I met you guys, before I met you specifically, Sam, I went on the 2015 tour of the Caribbean. It was my first proper grown-up gig commentating on cricket overseas, that type of thing. And we would spend, like the press pack that is, we would spend hours speculating who you guys might be. You hadn't lifted the veil of anonymity at that point. That happened, I suppose, when you wrote the book, the first book. Perhaps.
That's it.
So, and that
To
was
everybody's disappointment.
Yeah, well, you weren't Trent Copeland as everyone thought you were, for instance.
Copes.
Yeah.
Copes was, and I'm sure you had many that, you know, they speculated to you directly or otherwise, but no. And then you came up to me when we were all quite pissed one night in Sydney, but without necessarily knowing that I'd be at that pub. I was watching West Ham play, I think, and you were just out and about, and I didn't clock that you were the guy that had written the book, and it took me a while to realise where you fitted in. But you'd been listening to Geoff and me on a podcast that was on the ABC platforms that couldn't have been listened to by more than a handful of people. The guy who was in charge of signing the checks on that podcast at the time, we were told by a colleague of ours at the ABC a few years later, came into a meeting one day and said, what we should really do is have a cricket podcast on the ABC. And then someone had to inform him that Geoff and I have been doing it for 3 seasons and they just didn't know. It's quite funny. We're doing this book tour at the moment. Talk about going full circle.
Yeah.
I was trying to get us onto Grandstand to talk about the book we're releasing this week, and we've been denied on the basis that we are rivals. I'm like, how the fuck did that happen?
Really?
When you
We
consider
used to be you.
we're doing other ABC outlets, but we have been, you know, seen as a rival to Grandstand, which is very amusing.
We're no stranger to being blacklisted.
Yeah.
I suppose there's a compliment in it, and it's nice to be. It's nice
Nice to
that
be thought
establishment
about.
media recognise podcasts, because it seems like, you know, when we grew up, like, I don't know about you guys, but like as a kid, you know, the apex predator of media was being on TV and radio.
Yeah.
And podcasts have been like the poor, decrepit cousin.
Yeah.
But now everybody on TV and radio is just jumping on a podcast
They
now.
all want one. Every former player's got to get together with another former player to have a podcast.
And it should be easy, right? You know, you just get the mics and ask somebody how do you do a podcast and just
Yeah,
get
I mean,
cracking.
it's easy for episode 1 through 4 maybe, and then the enthusiasm really wanes quickly after that. What do you mean we have to keep doing it? We have to
also-
keep showing up.
Don't you think there's lethargy with like heaps of new pods, and some of them are having a real crack and some of them are less so? But like to get me to download or to subscribe to a new podcast takes some doing. It's just a
Inertia.
fatigue, an inherent fatigue to it.
And,
Also,
and the overall message on this show is to just don't worry about it, guys. Anybody listening or watching, you're taken care of.
yeah, you're all set with our 2 shows.
Yeah, you're already listening.
That's
to it.
right.
That's it. You've got a subscription. Your app's going to do it automatically.
Exactly.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and we're just doing what they did to us, which is to say, like, don't worry, let the experts take care of it. You know what I mean?
Did you guys have the first Australian cricket podcast? Was there something else around that time? Like, what was the space at the time? Like, was this 2014?
15 Ashes. The way it started for Geoff and I was that
Menzel's listening very carefully to this.
I don't want to get Menas mad. That might be
I want to get him mad when it comes to talking about England.
Oh, no, I've been talking to him
There's
in
no one
Perth.
better.
He-
One of
he
the
was-
all-time great blow-ups.
Yeah.
23 Ashes.
Unreal.
Bring it on.
Goated.
He declared the end of Geoff and my partnership in 2019 on his podcast.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
Oh, he's trying to start beef as well. That's good.
it's
for
okay.
the industry.
That was
We're
all
ready
good.
to rock. Let's go.
Okay, so this is being the beef episode. He'll be
Yeah.
red
Yeah.
hot on this.
But no, the show
tension.
started when, the idea of doing a podcast came from us both having the same idea about alternative commentary. You guys both know what Test Match Chauffeur did in the UK. I was living in the UK during the Olympics in 11-12, working on them, and I came into that space. And Geoff had the same idea that there should be something like that in Australia. I'd had a similar idea with some friends from the ABC, which I never implemented. But again, mates of ours like Steve Kinane and Francis Leach, who have all had at different points involvement with grade cricketer too. And we never really got it off the ground. I was still working in federal politics. Geoff had got it off the ground. I came into his world in 13-14, and almost the first thing we spoke about was that no one was really doing this. Not in Australia. There are a couple of podcasts in the UK. There was one called I always credit them, the World Cricket Show. These guys that live in, I always get Guernsey and Jersey confused. I think it's Guernsey.
Jumper Islands.
Yes.
But either way, they were doing one, and for a really long time, which I'd listened to. But that was essentially it. So there was this space, and by 2015, we were both working in the game. I'd left the comforts of having a full-time job to be a freelance writer, and one thing led to another. In a very similar way to how eventually to do this properly, you need to quit your job. That's what I did, and Geoff, was a poet at that point, so he wasn't quitting a job per se, but was moving industries.
I was moving into something where occasionally I got paid, which was nice.
It is nice, isn't it?
But I did have to quit the pirate radio station that carried on out of my house even when I wasn't there. I was like, you guys know how to break in, you know which window to climb through. Go for it, fill your boots. But that was that was maybe the most fun I've ever had in cricket, was those first couple of years of doing like overnight, West Indies tour, sitting up from midnight till 8 in the morning. And we had one sponsor, which was Moondog Beers, and they didn't sponsor us with cash. They just gave us beers.
Yeah.
Perfect. And that was all we needed to get, 12 people around to my house to spend all night watching the cricket.
When you guys were kids, like when I was a kid, I loved the radio, and cricket on the radio especially was fantastic. Lots of memories, like with my dad, and just summers generally, right, just driving to wherever. But I just absorbed radio. I loved it so much, and like what you guys have done between the podcast, White Line Wireless, fucking buying the rights to that Pakistan tour. Like you've obviously got a love for broadcasting, but like, did you have that same like foundation of radio?
Big time.
Like love
Big
for
time.
radio?
Radio does it better and different than anything else. You can watch the cricket, but we were talking about this with Adam White on a radio show only earlier today about when you're listening to it, you've got a voice in your ear. It's much more intimate than watching a screen. You watch a screen, you're removed from it. You're just hearing it. It's like you could be in the same room as that conversation. You could be overhearing that conversation in a cafe or something like that. And it makes you feel things in a different way, to the point that Adelaide test against India 6 years ago, whatever it is, when Lyon and Hazelwood were batting and they were trying to get to, they were within 30 odd runs of winning. And I was at Adelaide Oval sitting in the ground watching the game. And as it got to within about 50 runs, I was like, I need to listen to this on the radio and not watch it. And I left the ground and sat out by the riverbank and listened to Jim Maxwell call it, because I was like, I can see the cricket better when I hear it on the radio and I'm not watching it.
Interesting.
Like that's my ultimate way of following cricket, is to hear it and not see it.
Yeah.
You just being forerunners. I mean, I think it's important we say that you guys were forerunners when it came to this medium in any, in a serious way. I have a memory of meeting you as well, Collo. I think it was a Strawberry Hills Hotel in Devonshire Street in Sydney.
Premium
and
venue.
very much you turning around like, "G'day, champion. I'm just trying to watch West Ham here." No, not at all. Not like that. But
Beef.
So given you guys were forerunners in the podcast space, and this is maybe for people who like the BTS stuff, but like what was it like interacting with more established media people early on, before we were involved and interloping with the press box? Because I know we've felt like interlopers for a long time. I think Perth is the first time nobody has asked us what we're doing there, right? Having been there for like maybe 7 years. When you guys were doing it really early, and I know there's always been freelance narrators of the game, but narrating via podcast or other, atypical broadcast means, what was it like being in the orbit of established media people? Were you accepted? Were you not? How was your experience?
It helped that we were writing, but it didn't help that we were freelancers. So it fed into the wider impression, I think, and I don't know if, Geoff, if you share this view, that we didn't really belong. We were hard to place. And I think it might have been to do with our backgrounds as well. Like, I had this really odd career change. Geoff was from a completely different world entirely. And, we were trying to, that constant battle, how do you get people to come onto your program with an existing profile? How do you get players on? That was always the tension early on. It's not...
And with media managers, where it's always like, well, who the fuck are you?
So what rights do you possess?
Organisation?
What you said before, how many test matches have you played? Or alternatively, which masthead do you write for?
Yes.
Well, in our case, many of them, but we're not employed by them as such. So there was always that odd transition to becoming an established member of the press box, and I don't think we ever aspired to be that either. We wanted to be at least a little bit outside of it and maintain that independence. And we did work with other publications. With the pod mentioned the ABC, we did it for the Guardian for a number of series as well. But we found our happy place when we were truly outside of it. And look, most of the time, most media managers, as Geoff says, are pretty good with us. But there are some who actively encourage us to seek interviews through agents, because they know they're not going to help us. Like, they know they're not inclined to provide support with us with players, and that they go, well, fuck it, just go around us. We don't care. You get your own interviews. Don't worry about going through us. That still exists a little bit in the margins, but I think now there's a wider regard for the amount of people who we're all talking to and the different types of audiences that we're hitting. And as Geoff points out, the intimacy of it, taking the podcast with you rather than that sort of appointments of you thing where, as we know in Australia, people drop in and out of cricket for like 4 weeks a year at the pointy end of the summer, and for 11 months a year, footy's on. or the trade period's on, or the draft's on, or whatever, and we're
And thank
taking
God for
people.
that, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. But we're taking ideally, it's a bit earnest here, isn't it? But we're taking people with us on our journey, lapping the cricket planet, sort of once or twice a year.
Yeah, there's definitely a hierarchy kind of way to the way that people are seen within cricket media, because you've got your former player types, and some of them think they're better than everybody else, and a lot of them don't. A lot of them are very normal and humble people. But something like, because within a couple of years of working in this space, I wrote the Guardian piece on Channel 9 where I machined everybody on the broadcast.
The piece.
And well, I think it kind of was. I think people know what it is. But it meant that very quickly, like, there were the people who decided, how dare you, and they hated me. And then there were people who liked the fact that I'd stuck it up a few much more important, well-known people. And so I found out who my friends were pretty quickly in the early stages. So that helped in a way. It just fast-forwarded the bit of figuring out if someone hates you or not.
It's just such a labour of love, especially at the start, where, I guess over time where you can start making income from it. But at the start, you're just doing it because you like doing it, right? I mean, have you guys ever...
It's just because we were on the phone probably twice a week. We'd have a conversation on the phone for about an hour and just talk shit about the cricket. Yeah. And we went, well, we could just record this. So we did.
Have you ever thought about like dialing it back or anything like that? I mean, I don't think we've ever... Like when we first started to do it, we were just doing it through the Australian summers, right?
Yeah.
And then like you get bigger, and so you can start doing more things, right? But have you guys ever thought about ever dialing it back, or you just loved it so much that it's always been a steady ascension?
It's never been an active conversation to stop doing what we do at the moment. If anything, we're still expanding our remit, because it's like, I don't know how you guys feel. It's a bit addictive, the enterprise piece of it, right? Like you get into the groove of growing and building and new areas and whatever, and then a different part of your brain is being accessed, and in turn you're being stimulated in different ways. It's not just the act of going to the cricket and talking about it, which was the passion project. It's now like, well, how do we grow what we're doing? How do we make it sustainable? How do we have people who work full time with us now? How do we make sure they can have comfortable lives and bring other people on to work with us into the future?
It's about building out the project as well, and getting other people involved who sometimes host the show, and we can swap in and out and mix and match by finding people who match the kind of way that we do it, so that there's consistency in tone, but there's more possibility to cover more stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know how you find it with. I almost feel compelled for us to do daily episodes on every major series now, because if we don't, we're leaving. Like we're not maximising what we can do as an operation. Yeah, maybe
and
that's not healthy.
How will people survive without our views?
I know,
every single game,
which is totally indulgent, even in saying it. But there is an audience for it, right? So there is a tension there. I suppose it's something that over time we'll need to consider. It's not a perpetual motion machine, but
I do wonder about it. Like, what's the longevity? Like, how long can you keep putting energy into something? When does it start to burn out? It hasn't felt like it's at that point, but I've never felt like I'm going to work in cricket forever. I've always thought I'm going to do this for another year or two and then pack it in, and I've said that for probably 10 years of the 15 years that I've been doing it. And and every time I'm like, well, I'll go through to 2023. That's a big year. There's an Ashes and a World Cup, and then I'm like, well, maybe I'll go through to 2025, and it's just always been, yes, there's something more to do. 2027's the next one, but there'll be something after.
But also, you become better at it, right? I mean, remember when I don't know when exactly we were often podcasting together, probably around 2018, 17, whatever. Think about, I would be embarrassed listening to those conversations now and how ill-informed we would have been, right? Yeah. So as you get better and more competent and more informed and better networks and all the rest of it, you want to flex those muscles. You want to demonstrate that you've got a bit about you.
But we also said much looser.
I've got worse, I think, but yeah.
I hate reading my old stuff and go, my brain used to work way better than now.
I do think there's something to be taken from the early stuff. I think there's a lesson as a writer that you don't want to be too dismissive of your earlier work, because that work was crafted and you made decisions for a reason. And one of the things I have felt occasionally, I've had to listen to something early to put it together for a recap piece or something like that, is maybe we were less careful then, and maybe that was actually to our benefit, to not worry about. Because if you work in an industry for too long, it starts to compromise you. You go, well, I don't want to smash this thing too hard because I might need to get a job from that person some other time, or I don't want to criticise this player too much because then we might need to get an interview from them or something. And I think as soon as you find yourself thinking about those things, you're already compromised. And like, I rebel against that. My impulse is to push back against that and say, no, you've got to go as hard as possible on everything. But unless you're consciously thinking about it, I think you will pull back. You will do less. You will be less effusive about things. And so maybe we had more freedom earlier. I do worry about that in terms of the credibility of what anybody puts out. The longer you've been in the industry, the more likely you are to be shackled by having been there for that long, I think.
How does that work? How does that intersect with, I mean, not only the sort of shots you can play, but, you know, I know you guys did a project with Finn Taylor earlier this year, which was really good. And, you know, he's an absolute gem, clearly played in our cricket team in England earlier this year, and great guy to spend time with. But, I mean, he is uncancelable, right? The character he's developed for himself means that he can get away with literally anything. There's nothing he can't, because his audience has been cut. But I don't know whether we live in that orbit. I think we are, all four of us could easily get cancelled without much trouble at all, right?
Yeah.
We are not above that. Do you ever consider that in how you take things on, that if I get the tone wrong by 10% here, I move from being... So obviously you make a point of trying to be funny, right? There's a comedic aspect to your offering.
Thanks for adding trying into that.
Every day. Well, you are funny, but you are endeavouring to be funny. You're not just you're not playing straight. You're playing. It's not accidental.
No, it's
that you're
painfully
funny.
accurate, to be honest. But yeah.
But like, do you obviously when you're working in an edgy space, you're only ever a few degrees away from being in a problematic space. Do you consider that in how you set up?
I reckon that what helps is like having your own audience. That like if you can bring people along with you, then you're always going to be somewhat okay, right? As opposed to like living in the mainstream. I'll just speak for both of us actually here on this.
You have to do that.
But there is a point where like I think like part of our freeness to say things is that no one gives a fuck who we are. But then the more profile you get, or the more important people perceive you to be, then people might start like quoting you, for instance, and then that becomes difficult because you have relationships in the game, right?
But you're the most, I would say now, I might be wrong, it feels to me like you've got one of the biggest, if not the biggest megaphones in Australian cricket. I mean, I know Foxtel is a relatively new partner for you guys. You were with Seven before, but almost excluding television, the number of people you would reach through social media. So it's not like you're outsiders with your own audience, like your own discrete audience. You are, you know, you said before, Sam, about what it used to be with television and radio. You are effectively that now. I mean, that does come with risks, does it not?
Totally.
Yeah.
I think when you build a business model that has dependents within it as well, if you include sponsors within what you're doing, that's a consideration. If you build interviews, as you were saying before, into your show, then your views on them will matter, and they'll be listened to. And I think also if we, unlike Finn, who is, firstly, I think Finn Taylor is a genius.
Yeah, he is,
personally,
undoubtedly.
and he is out and out comedy with a very distinct style. You know, we probably, I've used the word moonlight before, but we sometimes moonlight as actually trying to narrate the game as well. So you're in that hybrid space at times of like, where you just kind of arbitrarily decide when you're just going to be completely loose and say whatever the fuck you want and hope it's understood as satire. And then other times try and be taken seriously. There are heaps of times when we finish shows and go, take that out. That's not necessary. I don't need this person hearing that. We tend to have a rule where it's like, if you wouldn't say it in front of them, don't say it, you know? Because when we were earlier on in the piece, we probably felt like no one really cares, you know, and it doesn't matter what you say. And it's very easy to record in here, and it's such a strange experience to record within four walls, and it's easy to forget that people hear it. You know, like sometimes when people will take a photo of them watching the show, and honestly, like, I know this sounds strange to hear through the years, but like you go, oh fuck, people are actually seeing this, or a player will send it, you know, and you're like, okay, I actually, at the end of the day, I do care what people think, you know, I don't like, and then that does compromise your independence. Be horrible
to people unnecessarily, just for my own amusement or to make someone else laugh. If it's cruel, you know, like
exactly.
It can sometimes be really hard to land being funny because there's always going to be piss taking. But it's like how bad is it?
Yeah, when are you hiding behind it? When is it not a joke and it's true? And then you have little splinters of your audience that they love when you're being cruel. That's I mean, and this is the grade cricket like conceit is largely built on a foundation of unnecessary cruelty, you know, so some people like that stuff and they don't like if you're being solemn, you know, and then some people quite like if you're, interviewing David Pocock about, you know, gambling, advertising or something. And,
Which I think
and then someone else will say, where's the cock stuff?
Right. Yeah, well, the Pocock stuff was out.
Get it out, Pocock.
Well, that would have been good for the video. I'm I'm sure. But no, I would have watched.
I'm sure.
I listened,
I'm
but I
sure
would have
he's-
watched.
I'm sure he's fine.
Oh, fuck you packing, there's no doubt. So I can't help it either, right? But you
Exactly.
made an
It's a
art
little
form of it.
reflex. So
Yeah, but
trying to walk in a few worlds.
there are a couple of flashpoints, right? I reckon the bits you did on Langer's demise was the best bits of the entire media's coverage of the Langer demise. The way you did it on the show summed it up and sized it up better than anyone. And yet you managed to have him, would I be right in saying, within 12 months of him losing the job, you did a stage show?
It was less. No, and we'll
That's remarkable to me. I'm not saying you were mean to Langer. I'm not saying you were cruel to Langer, but you got that as good as anyone got it in the entire industry. And yet he did a gig with you guys, and I don't know how the show went necessarily, but I found that interesting that you've been able to walk between the raindrops a little bit on providing sharp critique and still maintaining relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I'm uneasy about those kinds of things. Like on Langer specifically, we were straight up with him in the invitation for him to join our live show and told him that we had made lots of comedy of his situation and the situation, and that we felt that we'd like to make some with him if he was open to it. Yeah. And he said
And
that he
seems
was.
like the kind of person who likes a challenge, so he'd be like, okay, well, I'm gonna make
When he
you
walked on
slap
stage
me.
and slapped us on the back, I nearly fell over. And he punched me in the kidneys the other day.
Yeah.
So
How you going, digger?
it was, just that the knuckles just dig in a
Apple
little
jacket,
harder than
mate.
you expect.
Fucking smash those Nazis at Gallipoli, mate.
You got to laugh from Charlie.
That's good. That's
high
tough.
praise.
Sorry.
That's tough. Yeah. Sometimes I'm uneasy about the fact that that humour can be used as a disguise. You know, and people go, "Oh, that's all right," because he's making a joke. And you're like, "Yeah, but
Just making a joke
sometimes
about
things,
how I hate this prick.
sometimes things are funny
No,
because they're true, right? So it's not really a joke.
And
You
the
know
other,
what I mean?
And the other flashpoint, you mentioned commercial partners, right? And I don't know how much you guys want to. I don't know if you've ever really talked about it publicly, but when you had your blow up in 23 with a reflection on, I think Gideon, wasn't it, who came on and offered a critique on the Underbud Stadium, and for about a day there, I mean,
We talked about it, yeah.
I spoke to you. I spoke to you at the time, Sam, about when you were going through it. But like, how do you, in those moments, do you fear? Fuck, this actually might be existential. This might actually blow us up, or have you got the resilience or the belief that even a day like that, when you are being dunked on and you had to wind it back, and all the other bits and pieces that came with that skirmish, like, how do you feel that when it's happening?
Oh, I mean, that was a specific situation. I mean, all that happened there when Gideon made his remarks was that our initial thought was, well, he's free to say what he likes to say, and there's it's defensible, and he's an expert. You know, he's entitled to his view.
I think you said he's a public intellectual, right?
Yeah.
He's big enough to.
Yeah, but
Check it
then our family was receiving threats, and then we just went, well, don't want that anymore. So we spoke to Gideon and said we're going to take it down on account of that, and he was fine. And he's he said okay, and I think I'll speak for both of us now, but and this has turned into an interview of us. Congrats.
Sorry.
But no, it's not hard to get us talking about ourselves. No, is that our view's always been that we don't need to exist, and that so long as there are people who are interested in our narration of the game, then we'll keep doing it. You know, we don't need to be here if we're just fulfilling our own indulgences. But the numbers remain good. I heard HG of Roy and HG fan, or Greg Pickhaver, speaking as Greg Pickhaver, once say that, entertainment properties are very fragile. They don't last for very long in Australia. You got to understand, you get sometimes on the train and sometimes off. We're on at the moment. We'll be off, and it applies to everybody. So so as for that situation, it was like, well, I guess we'll find out if this is existential, because people will stop listening. And it was particularly related to India.
Sadder than imagining like we're 60 years old and we're doing the same shit.
We talk about that all the time.
I reckon there's a risk of it though, because we're nearer to 60 than we are 20. I mean, certainly you turned 40 recently as well.
Exactly.
I mean, 20 feels like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there is a chance that we are working in a similar space. People have done it. Roy and HG are a great example of it.
Yeah.
True.
Where they've started a creative partnership in their 20s and are still going in their probably 60s or whatever.
The secret to their success.
They don't do
is that
dailies though.
No, true.
You know what I mean?
True.
Their secret that they have they have spoken about is that they don't spend any time together.
Exactly.
So, it doesn't work for us because we're on tour together.
Do you guys have that as well? We deliberately don't say things to each other because just save it for the show.
Don't let the fizz out.
Yeah,
truly, because there's an energy to saying something first time and reacting to it.
We agree.
But they have that. They don't have any time. But we don't go that far because we spend every day together.
Yeah, I mean, they said we don't spend social time together. We don't hang out, and so we really enjoy the time we spend together making the show, and then we leave it at that, and we let that be the relationship. Now that's impossible on tour, being at matches, but Cam Fink is a videographer we've worked with a lot, and that was his advice that stuck with us: is don't let the fizz out. Whatever you're going to talk about in the interview, don't talk to the person about it first. Whatever you're going to talk about on the show, don't talk about it first. Get the first take, and that's the most natural.
Can I have one more swing here with criticism more generally? I know that yes, it's just it's probably just a young lad who is acting out when abusing us collectively online. But do you have you found a way to inoculate yourself from feeling that over time, or do you still read the comment on? I'm pretty good at. The Tubes who works for us has banned me from the YouTube comments, which is a good thing.
I've seen you guys write back.
Tubes does it. I've been banned from that for obvious reasons.
Yeah, for a while.
Because I just fucking pull into the cunts. But I know I
it's
can't
just another 20-1 situation.
That's bad for business. Yeah.
But behind the anonymity, because it just says the final word, so it could be.
I see that.
We're gutless in that sense. But no, I mean, I've often wondered that with you guys because you get far more feedback than we get because your social media presence is so pronounced. Do you feel it when someone piles into you and provides a full and frank character assessment of you?
Every series is different because of even for instance, the India series last year, you're just aware that it's going to be a wave of commentary, good and bad, right? And so, but then also when an English series
it's
comes
just a numbers
around,
game.
it's just a numbers game.
It's like The Walking Dead. You can only block, you block one. It's
Explain India. It's just a numbers game. Yeah. But then when the Ashes rolls around, there's something about the articulate, overly erudite, punchy comment, which is also just a fucking cunt in his mum's basement. Yeah. It's the same thing. Yeah. But what does help enormously, I speak for myself, is that when you're going through it together, that you have a shared experience that it's a commentary that you can you're going through that experience with someone else, right? So you can at least share that small trauma in some way, as opposed to being one person just going through that and no one else really understanding what that would feel like. Yeah, I think that definitely helps. But each series carries its own risk because people will get very passionate about where they're from and their team winning and stuff. And if you offer a critique, maybe you're a little one-eyed about it because you're supporting where you're from as well. So there's always going to be some conflict there, but at least you can go through it together. But at the same time, I do fall back on the idea of I don't think that any of my mates comment on the internet, And so
that's it.
Jared Waitley's made this point to me about the SCN text line, who, and generally about public commentary. Yeah. Think about everyone in your orbit, everyone in your world, and how many people might abuse you to a random phone number or to it's a pretty small percentage of the
who's
community,
sending abusive texts. What's the if you put all of those people together in a room, what's the caliber of person in that room?
Because there'll be people that will listen to our shows that won't comment good or bad, but they'll have equally disagreeable thoughts about what we might have said or done on the show. They just won't say it to you in the same way that you get more nice comments than negative ones, but people also don't come up to you in the street. They don't say nice things to you. So it goes both ways.
I think fundamentally, I learned to not care about it a long time ago, and I almost entirely don't because it's just not real. I'm that whatever is happening, that's not a real thing. I can choose to let that affect my life or not.
Unless it's a positive comment, in which case it's very
retweet.
I think it's really I think it's really good to be detached from positive feedback.
Not above it.
If it's really specific, if someone tells you, I've spent a lot of my life being an editor, and specifics are important. Don't tell me this is a good piece. Tell me why it's a good piece. What's good about it? Don't tell me that this sucks. Tell me why it sucks. What's bad about it? Let's get definition. Let's get detail in there. And most people don't do that. They go, "You're a weird-looking specky cunt, and you hate England or something." And I'm or you hate Perth.
The bald guy has juiceless banter.
That was me.
I get hard over that.
But genuinely, I care about the opinion of people who I care about.
Yeah.
And so if someone whose opinion I value tells me that I fucked up, then I will absolutely listen to that. And I want to get negative feedback from people I care about so I can be better at things. Yeah. But if someone I have never met and never will meet tells me whatever form of abuse they want to on the internet, just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. It's not real.
It's the Gideon test for books, isn't it? If you've written a cricket book and Gideon lays into you, that's the end.
Oh mate, I've
It's the end of time.
I've seen some of his critiques of books that are just withering, and I
Yeah.
thought, you know
Book-shaped
what, we need
objects
to
is
start
the-
a business with him, so he's compromised.
Can you write a forward for this, Gideon?
Yeah. Totally. A genuine thought I had with the book that we've done is like, thank God this is lightweight enough that he probably won't read it. Because it's just some gentle little recaps of stories that he'll know all of them anyway.
Maybe have a proclivity for it, you know. Like
Yeah.
we've watched Mark War's Sidemouth, you know, quite frankly about people, and I was like, I want him to do it about us, you know what I mean? So maybe it's the same thing with Gideon. Just like just hit me, you know what I mean? It'll feel great.
Yeah.
I'll divulge something here in the interest of content. I have actually gone into Chat GPT before and asked it to provide I've told you this, asked it to criticise the grade cricketer in the voice of Gideon Hay. And it's fucking incredible. I'm sorry to say, because obviously it's
That's content. Get it out there.
ChatGPT is evil and debauched and bad. But
It's
that
very bad.
was like reading it, go, oh, and it's so right. He's so right.
I
So
don't know. I don't trust it. I've had people send it to me asking it to mimic me before, and it just puts too many adjectives in. I'm like, I don't use adjectives.
Yeah, you get
It's like my
offended.
number
Yeah,
one
yeah,
writing
yeah.
rule is like, take the adjectives out.
Exactly.
And it's all this florid bullshit. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's fucking Keats wrote that.
I mean,
write that.
I think like I'll say it's. I think criticism in comments, like they can hurt, and I just think that's a human thing. I think to sort of sit here and go, I've figured it out. I've actually figured out how not to be impacted by people's criticism. I mean, at least from my end, it would be disingenuous. But there are tools. You know, we have rules here. Like they're a little sardonic, but it's just like everyone's allowed to read one comment a day. Like share one ridiculous comment a day, but no more. Let's not immerse in them, because things people say are insane.
I
And
just think my life's better than their life. That's the number one thing.
Yeah,
that comes
so
up.
that's a
I'm
rationalisation.
enjoying
Yeah.
my day more than they're enjoying theirs.
we can be rational about it. I mean, the people who comment are probably have got their own issues, but it's still something that you feel, and it's probably important to feel and not be like, you know, completely dead into it. And then it's also, I think, if we're being rational, you know, to realise that we're not asking for much other than just universal popularity with everybody. You know what I mean? I mean, in the day, like we're just people offering a narration of the game, and so, like, I mean, our lens is grade cricket. I mean, fuck knows what grade cricketers think about this, because I've been in grade cricket and nobody's good at anything. You know what I mean? That's the actual shtick of the thing. At least with commenters, you're hearing it. You know, like it's more the people who aren't saying stuff. You're like, oh, what do they think about this?
But
You
we
know,
are
but-
the great cricketer.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, and
yeah.
grade cricketers would love that too. Putting yourself forward as the representation of that. Should we talk Ashes?
The further away it is from when you were involved
Yeah.
as well, the more tenuous your claim.
Oh yeah,
to
absolutely.
that becomes,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I was going to ask
Yeah.
Pezza about the first Test pitch, fellas. It's got a very good rating by the ICC. That's the top rating you can get. Now, why is the ICC racist against Indian pitchers?
Yeah.
I love that. There's nothing better than Cricket Australia putting out. To
Cricket
my
Australia
mind,
does put a media release out for each of
I've
these.
seen them all the time.
I don't think I've ever. I mean, yeah, it's the first one I've ever seen. Yeah, I was thinking, is it to an audience of one who I kind of know who they might be thinking of, or is it to an audience of 1.6 billion?
Yeah.
Probably the latter. It's got.
So
it's
it'll do
not-
numbers.
It'll do numbers.
They
it'll do
have
numbers.
press releases for the poor pitches, like the Gabba one, the South Africa one, where they've had demerits or whatever. I don't know if I've seen them for the good pitches, but it's an extra little salt in the wound for England. By the way, fellas, tip-top pitch.
That was a
there.
banger.
No problem.
Isaac's done it again. Another banger.
Yeah.
There was the MCG one which Jackson Bird was retired on.
Oh yeah, 17, 18. That was a
But so
shocker.
like that gets a bit of press, because it's like, well, the Boxing Day test could be taken away from Melbourne, you know, if they keep preparing these shit tips, you know. But
if they produced 3 more of these, in
if
4
anything,
years.
Well, they
if
ran the
anything-
gauntlet the year after they had another shocker, but yeah,
Yeah.
they got their shit together then.
when I think about the test now, if I think about it, if anything, the pitch was too good. You know what I mean? Like, how do you keep reaching?
How do you improve on
How do you
that?
improve on perfect? You know,
Yeah.
I love that Perth.
I guess we'll never know what the pitch was. Really, how long does the game have to go? It's like the records with how many innings you
True.
play. It's like, do we know what the
We
pitch
don't know
was?
anything. We know 3 teams got rissoled and then one guy made 150
Yeah, exactly.
off 80 balls.
sort of flattened out pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah, Hetty's disappointed actually that they said the pitch was good.
It was a flatty.
It's like, oh, that was really tough. But speaking of socials and clicks and that kind of thing, Usman's Insta post game. It was just a couple of pics of the winning team, and then the last shot was of a golf course. So where are we at on Usman and his likely feelings about the conversation around his position in the side?
Well, I will say...
And do you guys want an interview with him? So is that
I want an interview with him. He's a really interesting character.
More likely to happen when he's not playing in the test team.
I think it's truthful. If the point is you got to be straight about these things, and I think even he would concede he's pretty chippy. He's been pretty chippy for most of his career about any sort of criticism, and he's had plenty of criticism, and he's also had periods where he's been like basically the best player on the planet for a couple of seasons, sort of late 2015 to...
A guy who's had a cricket career of 85 tests.
Right.
Yeah.
Ups and downs, funny that.
Yeah.
Doesn't love criticism, and I don't know. I mean, if you're coming off a treatment during an innings fielding the innings of 33 overs, there is a story there. There is a story, and the story is: can you be picked to play another Test match if the same thing might happen? And that sort of injury is so unpredictable. So I don't think he could be feeling too hard done by if he's not playing. But we'll have the squad pretty soon, early tomorrow, and we'll know. I mean, if he's in the squad, they're going to pick him, and if he's not, that's probably curtains.
Yeah, his head's been above the parapet for a number of years now since he came back into the test team on any number of different cultural issues, whether they should or shouldn't be. I come back to that Pocock interview, which was outstanding a few weeks ago with you guys. And I'm really pleased that you were willing to take that on as a topic, because we do it on our show, but that's one thing. You guys highlighting it for an hour with the centre of the whole different area. But no, I think that's one of 3 or 4 things where Khawaja has gone hard, and there are people waiting for him with, the proverbial baseball bats in political speak. So,
why is that? Is it just because of his technique? Or
just the way he goes about it. He's lazy, I think.
Nothing else.
Tubby, a bit lazy.
Right.
Doesn't work hard enough.
Yeah, I've noted a certain tenor around the conversation. It just seems to have a bit more intensity.
So, but I don't want to get stuck in that. Occasionally you hear people say what I've just said there and then go, well, of course they'll fuck him over. It's obviously not that. Anyone who's been watching closely knows that he needed to make runs upon entering this series, and he's had a very bad week in Perth, which has been complicated by the golf thing, probably unreasonably, because that's the way he prepares for all Test cricket. So, why would it be any different this week? But there's a bigger story here around his deterioration against seam bowling. But, we all know that by this stage, and how they reconcile that with him when they want him to have the lovely dismount, right? Because he did get fucked over earlier in his career. There were moments when he had the bad rubber, but they would love nothing more than Khawaja to get the farewell at Sydney in 6 weeks' time. That would make everyone very, very happy. But most cricketers don't get that. Most cricketers don't get the coronation bit, or the reverse of that, really, the end bit where they jump off. Most of them get their careers ended for them. So, and if he's one of them, that does not change the contribution he's made. That's my big thing. Just because you've been dropped at the end doesn't diminish who you were as a player. It's a reflection on a moment in time.
Yeah. So take us into the calculations of as a part of the commentariat when there is a player who is on the precipice, and there's all sorts of factors there that you can that are staring you in the face around age and form, etc. Even Andrew McDonald, it seems, was unwilling to make a comment on it until we understood his fitness. You know what I mean? Why would you rule a player out if there's a better excuse for him not to play? Right. That is that he can't. Would I be right in saying that there would be pundits out there who would be pulling their punches because the last thing you want is to call time on a player's career only for them to come back and make 100? You know what I mean?
Big time. Look, if we're doing disclosure items, last December, I was talking to my editor at The Guardian about a long piece on Steve Smith and the decline of Steve Smith's batting over the course of like 5 or 6 years. And there was a lot of interesting statistical stuff, and we were like, cool, we're going to do this piece. And I said, I'm just going to wait till after the Brisbane Test because I just want to see what's going to happen this week. Tunned up that week. Tunned up the next game. Played like 4
of the next 5
Test matches. And I was like, thank fuck I did not run that piece, because I would have spent the next 6 weeks getting picked apart by crows. So there are times when you want to play it a little more carefully, but there are things that are real. And I mean, I think with Khawaja, I said after the Sydney Test last year, I said that should have been it. That should have been his last Test. They should have told him before that Test that it was time to wrap it up because of how he'd looked against pace bowling for 2 years before that. And he's gone on to play exactly the same way through the middle part of this year. And you can have all the caveats about it was tough in the West Indies and so on, but the reality is they've got a player who's underperformed for a long period of time, aside from a double hundred in Sri Lanka where he wasn't facing anything above 50 kilometres an hour. So what do you make of it? Like sometimes you just have to be real about that's the reality, and that doesn't mean he might not play in Brisbane, come out, blaze 100 and be great. And if he does, awesome. Like I like to see people enjoying themselves and doing well. I'd be happy about that. Like no one, I don't think anyone's. There are only so many stories in sport, and those stories are someone is near the end of their career, someone is about to start their career, or someone's in the middle and some wonky stuff is going on.
Yeah.
Those are the only stories we have. So we're going to tell one of them.
I come at that from a slightly different perspective, to be honest. I think that people who have played at the highest level are entitled to have a more sophisticated opinion on the 22 yards in the middle than me. I've played cricket for 33 years or something like that, and thus know the game, and I think it's important to know the playing of the game. But there is a point where you need to be willing to be or show deference to people who have done it. So I like to provide grey area in what I say and provide a balanced perspective as a commentator and as a broadcaster, and indeed on the podcast, rather than skewering blokes. Geoff loves skewering blokes. I don't really do it as much. Geoff goes 11 out of 10, tells them why they're shit, tells them why they shouldn't play for Australia again. I'm more like, well, here's one perspective on that. Here's another perspective on that. Here's what some other people think, because I personally think that I'm not qualified to end Usman Khawaja's career on the basis of what I've seen. But I think that I can provide context around it so that other people can make that claim if they wish. And that might make me a soft cock for playing it that way. But I've formed the view over time that it's better to set things up and provide different perspectives on the bat and ball bit and save my machine guns for areas where I am better qualified, perhaps the politics and the administration of the game, where I've got a better handle on it than a former player would, for instance.
You both have watched England a lot, particularly the last 3 years under this.
May say too much.
Axis. What happened in Perth isn't necessarily an outlier, perhaps in the speed of the test match, but the chaos therein is not an outlier. Do you both enjoy watching England play?
I didn't enjoy watching that test match, I guess, because it felt like we did 6 months of preamble, build up, promo, preview.
Yeah.
Wake up at 4 a.m. to take a call from some BBC show to talk to them about Mark Wood and Jofra Archer. And then we've done a week of post-mortem, and now we're doing more build-up. And I'm like, we've done no cricket.
31 hours of cricket,
weird.
wasn't it? 31 hours from the first ball to the last ball.
Right.
It felt bizarre. It felt uncomfortable. And I was watching that game thinking, like, what's the point? Like, why have I made the effort to travel here? Why have all these other people made the effort to come here to watch it? And you're getting just amateurish bullshit. I remember when Pakistan played there a couple of years ago, Alex Malcolm absolutely blowing up at Shah Massoud driving at one on the up outside off stump, and he's like, "You don't play that shot in Perth that early in the first session. You need to have faced 60 balls before you drive."
Yeah,
And then it was like the entire England team does that.
Yeah,
Alex Malcolm in Perth goes to like a plus level Alex Malcolm as well, which
and he knows what he's talking about because he's opened the batting.
Well, again, he's a
conditions for years,
very qualified person to talk about batting in Perth. Yeah.
But I'm like that indignation at the incorrectness of the technical method being applies to an entire professional team who showed up, didn't bother to do any preparation, and then played that test match and played it like absolute dog shit. And I don't enjoy that because it just seems like they're not taking it seriously. If they're like, why should we bother to be there, put in the effort, do the coverage, pay the money, all the rest of it? Everybody, spectators, media, everyone, like all the broadcast trucks, everyone who's rocked up to do 5 days of broadcast, and they've been served this half-assed kind of shrug of the shoulders, we don't really give a shit, let's hit the links.
But they are taking it seriously. That is their version of taking it seriously.
Yeah.
It's a vision, like it's a movement,
But
right?
It's diluted.
They-
It's
they-
a hallucination.
Now that's what I was going to ask.
It's not a vision,
what is
it's a
the
hallucination.
And they've still got 2 more chances, and you double down all the time. The cards will fall your way. I don't play cards, your cards go.
I dealt roulette as a job
Yeah.
early in my career, and I can tell you can double down 7 times before you hit the house max on the outside bets on the table.
Yeah.
So if you're going 5 on red, you can double down 7 times before you've crossed the ceiling, and you're definitely going to lose money. And I can tell you at some point over the course of the evening, I'm going to roll 8 reds in a row, and you're going to lose a lot of cash.
Yeah.
Doubling down doesn't work. There's a reason. The house sets it up so that you cannot double down infinitely.
And that's the, if we were to assess Bazball, in its X's and O's, that's really what we're talking about, right? And they would, what is the correct metaphor for McCullum and Stokes? Like I've seen people talk about it in terms of a brand.
Problem
you know,
gamblers.
people pathologizing it, you know, talking about it in terms of personality traits, you know, or just a strategy that you have different views upon.
Oh, look, to answer your first question.
And they're only 1-0 up Australia, by the way. We're quick. We're quick.
We are. And at Stumps Day 1, indeed at Lunch Day 2, and we all know how that changed so radically with the 3 drives on the up, etc. And, you know, that's been done to death by now. But I kind of feel like their neural pathways have been rerouted over 3.5 years of being told that they can do no wrong. I think there's something to that. Like if you are so immune to external opinions or external critique on what you do that you dismiss it out of hand, and only ideas that emanate from the dressing room could ever possibly have any credibility about them. If you were to meet people in life outside of cricket who are like that, you would think they've got a bit of an issue. You would think they're a challenging personality.
Malignant narcissist or something.
Or, you know,
This is what I was saying, the pathology.
Yeah, so I'm more into that critique. I'm like, well, why do they feel so? Why? I mean, look, I heard Mark Wood speak the other day and said that, what do you want from us? If we're too emotional, you'll say we're not level enough. If we're too chilled, you'll say we're not emotional enough. So I get the public doesn't always meet the private, but it sometimes feels like when we get a window into the soul of the team, that this continues to be the starting point, that they have got this licked. And, you know, I've written about this year about why do Australians find this so difficult to grapple with. The idea that Test cricket requires some saviour in England, having lived there for a decade, I get that. I understand you when we lived there at the same time, Sam, didn't we? It does feel like cricket is a minority or a secondary sport there for much of the year, except for when, you know, when we're in the middle of an Ashes series or they've made a World Cup final. Here, it remains, jokes about football aside, it remains the national sport, the national conversation, and we don't sort of feel that need for it to be saved. So there's this competing ideological thing within all of this as well. But yeah, my most interesting takeaway, I think, or what I'm most interested in rather from last week, is that they won't necessarily think that they did anything wrong or that they can improve on what they did. And that doesn't augur well when they're going to conditions which in all probability will be quite similar in Brisbane with a higher degree of difficulty. And the annoying bit, you know, to kind of tap into what Geoff's saying, is that they've shown a willingness to play more humble cricket against India at Lords this year. We were all at that test. I mean, that was a cracking test match because England made a decision that they were going to try and shift down a couple of gears to deal with the immediate challenge of Jasprit Bumrah. And what do you know? They won a thriller. Yeah. I wonder if they had it within them to do that more often, they'd be in a better position. They could, of course, they could win at Brisbane, but it'll take something remarkable if they play in the same manner to win at Brisbane. Would be how I'd put it.
I wonder if their you know, pathological stubbornness does augur well for them in so far as I think the conventional wisdom is that a capitulation that humiliating would then trigger a kind of demoralisation that that would develop momentum, but they are so insulated and they are so.
The whole shtick is we don't get humiliated.
That's right. I mean, they're impervious to demoralisation. Right. Yeah, they just go. They just go again. You can't actually penetrate it. So, you know, which is often the way with extreme personalities, is that, like, you know, the highs are super high, you know, and they might get there.
The commitment is to not doing what someone else says they should do. And so that's like the whole thing of nobody going to Canberra to play. Like, did Joe Root not want to go to Canberra and have a hit against the pink ball under lights?
Well, even if he did, I doubt you'd be saying it.
That's the thing, is that he would feel like if he did that, he'd be making the others look bad. You know, he'd be like the.
But if he did, we'd go like, cracks in the
He'd
old,
be the one kid who reminded the teacher about the homework.
I reckon there was more going until. I reckon there were more going. I reckon there were more based on the briefing to media.
Yeah.
Because that press release went out quite late. My English colleagues have relayed that was set up in the morning as like, there's quite a bit going on with this Canberra thing. Be ready to report on it later. And it was a massive anticlimax, which suggests to me that there probably was going to be some of the starting 11 going to Canberra, and then something's happened during that day.
I reckon fundamentally, I think at the beginning it was not a bad thing, because it was the way that Mike really tried to explain it as a response to depression. The team was depressed, the world was depressed. Post-COVID, terrible run for that side, and it was like anything's better than doing this the way and being as sad as we are. You know, the sort of sad Joe Root, sad Joss Butler kind of team that they had, and they got happy, and they had a few results that were fun, and people had a good time, and that was great. I think that was actually positive for maybe a year, but you can't run on adrenaline for that long without running out of adrenaline. You know, your brain can only manufacture so many drugs. Anyone who's a dopamine addict knows this. Like, eventually you run out of your own stimulants. And so I reckon they're on the running empty, like they can taste metal at the back of their mouths at the moment. Things aren't going well neurologically. But they're like the rats keep going back to the cocaine dispenser even after it's run out. There's nothing more. You can keep hitting
Rats.
the button. There's nothing. There's your clip. There's nothing more in there.
I got watching Kratz. I was going back to the cocaine dispenser.
I'd pay a subscription for that.
Yeah.
I think, they could do with a dose of oxytocin, I think is what you're saying there, to offset all the adrenaline, no doubt. And I don't know, maybe behind the scenes, what I don't
We're
discount
not arrogant. Nothing arrogant about this at all, by the way.
Yeah, I
Australia
know.
1-0. But just like now we're
absolutely
doctors.
fucking piling in.
That's right.
They're
We're
narcissists.
prescribing medicine
Yeah.
to them.
Like an autopsy of the series after
Just a cuddle.
5 sessions of cricket.
Just a
Yeah,
cuddle. You get oxytocin if somebody just holds you close and strokes your hair. You know, you don't need to be dosed up by your doctor. Just have a cuddle, have a relax, take some deep breaths.
Yeah.
Remember, you don't have to play every ball. You know, it's okay.
Well, like, I mean, there's such little middle ground with this England side, it feels like. But I mean, so England have won one of their last 5 tests. They haven't won in Brisbane since, I think it's
86,
86, right? They've never won a pink ball test in Australia. Australia, on the other
Barely
hand,
played any. They haven't played any pink ball cricket.
True.
And they're going up against like the
goats.
the 4 top wicket takers in pink ball history.
Yeah. So on top of that, Australia have won 15 of their last 19 tests since the last Ashes. Now, like, does any of that matter? Because that seems like the exact challenge that Stokes and McCullum, I'll just use those two as the leaders of the group, like to overcome. You know, like they like backs against the wall, you know, doing things that no one thought was possible. Now, you look at these numbers and you're always trying to find patterns before a test match, right, about what's about to unfold. But it's almost like it's so chaotic, the whole thing. It's like none of these, I mean, fundamentally, none of these stats matter because a ball's going to be bowled and a batter's going to try and hit it and we'll find out what's going to happen. But you know, you look at those numbers and you're like, well, England are fucking no chance.
But unless they win the toss and bowl, they could fucking no lube Australia. You know what I mean? Like if they get Australia on a juicier surface that's had, it's meant to be raining the next week, right? Okay. And in Brisbane, and you know, this time of year, it's, as I understand it, it lends itself to more extreme weather conditions in Queensland. So pink ball, if they get Australia on and they roll them for 100 or whatever, it'll throw in much the same way when Australia were all out 132. On morning 2. It feels like it was so deep into the test match. It was wild, wasn't it? But it could change. On the other hand, if Australia get the chance to bowl at England first, that's the real quiz. I mean, that is where this could get messy. And I hope it doesn't, by the way. I hate to get super earnest here, but like we've not had a bloody series get to the 5th test live against England in Australia since 1983. 82, 83. It's a long, long time. Wow. In England, we've had
really had a competitive
05,
series
09,
since
2015, or 2019, 2020. There have been a whole suite of them, right?
Yeah.
Why do we still care about it? We haven't had a competitive Ashes in Australia in 55 years.
Yeah, but it'd be
Colonisation.
I know a lot of people watching this and listening to this, I think 5-0 would be absolutely delightful and maybe it would have its own
That's what
mystique.
I was thinking too, if I'm honest. But after it's done before the end of day 2, I'm like, can I sit down?
Yeah.
Give us a day or two.
But it's going to change the way that people interpret the game more widely. If there, I'd love to see an analysis on how many balls have been bowled on average per test in it was 2018, wasn't it, when things started to change? You know, we grew up where Test cricket, broadly speaking, ran for 5 days. Occasionally, Test matches were wrapped up in 4, and very, very occasionally a Test match wrapped up in 3. It is changing. The rhythms of the sport are changing, and I suppose we have to change with it. But yeah, that's a discomforting or an uncomfortable thing for me, is that we now are watching a sport or a form of the game which it can be resolved within 3 days far too often for my wants and needs, and of course that's the most important thing.
Yes, absolutely right.
You blokes, I mean, we've got the shot here of the book for people watching on YouTube, but Bedtime Tales for Cricket Tragics, book event tonight. William McInnes, that's some fucking sea change stuff right there. That is talk about safety. And Australian. Just to me, William McInnes is just is a great Australian man. There are stories underneath there. There's we're just making noises now.
He did our pod in the pandemic, and I mean honestly, it was one of the loosest steps we've ever put to air.
Yeah. The fact that he begins every email with "Hello, old cock."
Is he from Tassie?
Oh, Tassie.
And then when we raised because he's got a book coming out as well, which has some cricket stuff in it. I said, why don't you come to our thing? And he goes, It'd be good to roll down for a natter and a gargle.
Oh my God! I've seen Australia.
Terminology.
Yeah.
The other line I always remember is that you say, "I'll see you at the Boxing Day test where I'll be propping up Percy Beams."
There's a dignity to that beneath whatever alcohol issues are probably there. Not for him. I'm not saying him. I'm like all of us. Sorry, I've got no idea about Lou McKinnis' relationship with alcohol.
Viv Richards isn't on the wall anymore. And Alison Cook is.
Yeah. Within this book, I mean, it's meant to sit by your bed, right?
Yes.
Within the book, is there a yarn in there that is most pertinent to grade cricket or debauchery within?
Yeah,
Debauchery, yes.
I reckon Stoddy.
Stoddy's debauchery.
Andrew Stoddart was an England captain in both cricket and rugby.
Yeah.
Successful in both sports. He led England
Is that when it was like amateurs?
a
like
famous
some
victory.
Amateur guy had it?
Yeah, 1894-95.
He was on the first Lions tour in 1888.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which after he hung around after
You mean British
Ashes,
and Irish lines, or
They weren't not
the
then.
England twos?
They were not. No.
Yeah.
What became the British
England
and
Scooby
Irish
Doos. He
Lions.
came on that trip.
So he played a cricket series and then hung around for like 5 months. And then the captain of the rugby team died, and then he took over the captaincy of that rugby team and did the Lions tour as well.
But either side of that, so 1894-95 is a great Ashes series. I won't bore you with why, but it was 2-2 going into the
We all
fifth.
know that. What happened.
It was on your
You don't
platform.
need to, yeah.
It was on your platform last week. I think Gideon reminded everyone of how good that series was. Anyway, but before that, in
death threats.
1880, before he made a first class 100, he was playing cricket for Hampstead, where I played many years ago, and that's what attracted me to the story. Years ago, I'm like, oh, this is where this happened. So he went out all night, got on the piss, playing cards, dancing, went straight to the game, allegedly, had 40 minutes kip in the dressing room, walked out to the middle and made 485, the highest score in cricket history at the time. No one had made a higher score than that.
Yep.
So 5 hours of batting, they made 800 odd. He gets off the field, goes up the hill at Hampstead. There's a tennis court. Tennis court's a lawn tennis club, Cumberland. Played 5 sets of tennis, got back on the piss, and that was his remarkable
Did he get a chop?
ADHD fueled weekend.
Yeah.
And then
Circuit chop?
he almost certainly, this guy clearly had. Well, sadly, he was a guy with some trouble, and he eventually killed himself many years later. He was clearly a guy who lived life to the extreme. But in the same week, Geoff, you remind me here, got his first class 100, got another double ton for Middlesex, for Hampstead rather.
He went to play a county game, made 98, and then backed it up a couple of days later and made his first ton, and then made a double for Hampstead. So he made like 950 runs in a week.
Including the 485. So when I was back at Hampstead 10 years ago, we did an AE Stoddart tribute weekend where we went out till 6 in the morning and played a game on the Sunday as a homage to the great man. But no, so we included that in the book. That's probably something that grade cricketers can relate to, like not quite rain card style, but sort of knowing you're playing the next day, barely a wink of sleep, maybe not the quadruple ton piece, but having succeeded, having completely taken the piss and probably still blowing over 0.05 in driving jargon. So that to me is a very relatable sort of playing community cricket, but in his case going on to become an Ashes winning captain in Australia, and there aren't many of them.
For me, the wildest part of that story is the 5 sets of tennis he threw.
Yeah.
Nothing I like more after making a quadruple ton.
Yeah. Are we doing tie breaks or what are we doing?
Maybe us McGuire should try that before a test match.
That's good.
Just warm up with 5 sets, 3 days running.
Yeah.
The boys were into their tennis. I think Kwaja has a tennis court in his house. They were doing like tennis rankings.
Smith, I think.
Yeah.
Smith loves tennis.
Yeah.
Watching.
He was playing against Roger Federer, did you say?
No, he was obsessed with Roger Federer. He'd always be going to Roger Federer matches. It was like one of his 2 interests when he had 2 interests.
Yes.
They were New York City and Roger Federer. Now it's
He had a drone,
New York
didn't he?
City
I wrote
also.
about his drone once when we were in Cape Town. When we were after Sandpaper.
me.
Scrape the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, after Sandpaper, and I'd written 25 articles in a week. Remember coming on with you guys at one point through that whole drama and barely getting a word out because it was so taxing. But at one, I was so bereft of what to write about. I wrote about Steve Smith's drone, how he was taking it out into the harbour at Port Elizabeth and whatever else.
Off the cliffs.
And that was meant to be. I was making the case at the time that he should spend his year off doing what Joe Watson did when he was suspended and become a barista in South America or something. Instead, he played in Toronto, 4 weeks later
King
on Syntho.
City.
City.
City, we were looking for. I remember 2016 in Sri Lanka. I was like, got to get some more. There's got to be some more depth to this bloke. Like, what can we talk about? And I asked him at a presser, like, what are you interested in outside cricket? What do you want to do later? And he goes, might get into real estate. I was like, most boring profession in the world.
I don't think he. By the way, I think he is radically different. Not radically. He is different to that now. Like my sense when I don't know whether you deal with him on content day each year, right? And other bits and pieces around. Although, did he rock up this year, or was he still in America?
He wasn't there.
So Zamps had to come back, and Smith didn't. That's interesting. Rules for some, but no, but you know, he.
I don't think. There's probably so. I don't think Zampa was that unhappy with coming back. I know it was like he got taken away from what his commitments in
100
England.
final or whatever it was. Yeah,
you know, I was like, oh mate, you must be gutted. He's like, it's down the road. I just want to be at the game.
Yeah, but no, like I think that he now presents as a far more calm. You know, when he was skipper first time, full time in the job, you'd interview him the day before a test match for radio or whatever, and he really didn't. Like he was looking through you. He didn't. Whereas now he engages and answers the question that's being put to him, and
he certainly seemed calm talking about Monty the other day as well.
Very
That was water off the duck's back.
Yeah, the setup. I mean, I've watched that video approximately 1,000 times. I didn't remember the jokes as well as Smith did. So
he obviously prepped. That's what I'm most impressed. He spent at least an hour picking out the lines that he wanted to repeat. So it was the most detailed answer I think we've ever got from a question.
To what end do you think? And I know it's a silly hypothetical, but to what end would we be passing his decision to do that if England had just batted an extra session and Australia had lost?
Yeah.
You know, because it didn't appear to me like a guy that was. It doesn't. I mean, who am I to question Steve Smith's focus or any of us? But you know, it was a very odd thing.
All through day one, and certainly towards the end of day one. Why is the Australian captain focusing on this? People are very, very stupid. Fundamentally, is a thing that I believe in general. And so the idea that you can't do two things at once, like you know, the US
the focusing
military,
is wrong.
We're not concentrating on killing people because we're too woke, and it's like. I reckon you can have some people who are looking after a diversity and inclusion bit, and also the people who are looking after the shooting bit, and they're probably both coming to work and clocking on and doing a decent job at their respective disciplines. No, you can only do one thing at a time. It is nonsense.
He's certainly got an energy at the moment, Smudge, though, doesn't he? I mean, he's back in the captaincy seat. He's letting people know that he's 6 on the bounce, now 7. He's got the big thick silver necklace going. He's shadow putting, scoring hundreds.
Those hydraulics in his car.
Yeah, he's going
up and down.
He's going after Monty. Like it's a Mamdani thing maybe from New York. You know, he's just got the Zoran.
Yeah,
he probably was
bounce.
He might have shaken hands with Zoran and just some of that magic. Some of that juice.
Old Soho Smith, they call him.
Wasn't far away from fucked, was he? You think a year ago, strangled at Adelaide, I reckon.
Yep,
strangled
he was
at
ski slaloming into balls.
Yeah, and he it did feel like he was, you know, in terminal or maybe in terminal decline. It was certainly put that he might have been. Well,
that's why we were looking at that piece, because it was like the numbers over that period of time.
I like that. I love it when a player looks like they're fucked and they have one last hurrah. And
can you think of others who found the elixir again at that age? I mean, he's rediscovered.
Dravid.
He's savant.
There's that year of Raoul Dravid towards the end of his career where he just suddenly.
I mean, so I thought Smith was gone, truly. We hadn't seen it in the decade. I mean, he touched Bradman in 2019, and then it was Wagner bumped him, and then he couldn't bat with any kind of fluidity. He was cobbling scores together. But
it was like he was tired from 2019 for 4 years.
That's right. And then at the very last minute, he was a savant again.
Yeah.
And we're like, he's back. Yeah, we knew he'd be back.
Had 2 Ashes series where he averaged 30-something. And, you know, and everybody still talks about him. The English still talk about him as though he's 17, 18, 19 Smith. But he had those 2 great series, and then the last 2 were mediocre. So it's not. Yeah, his peak was an absurd peak, but people talk about him in sort of all-time terms. You know, you got Bradman does it over 20-odd years, and Smith has like 4.5 years where he's a god. And then the rest of it where he's hard to get a beat on.
I'm sure there'll be someone out there who puts Smith above Bradman in the fucking Guardian poll as well. Do you guys get stuck into that? Were you voters on that?
We were, yeah.
Some rogue shit in those answers. Anyway, I don't know.
Did you leave Bradman out of the 50?
No, I didn't have him number 2.
Yeah. Nor did I.
I didn't. I mean,
but he wasn't in my top 10. Yeah. But I never saw him play. Never saw him play. Yeah. I get
all you had to do was bump him. I mean, it was pretty.
Well, he never played against India either, so you got to factor that in. No IPL.
9 a.m. start at Guwahati. How was he going?
Yeah. We'll talk about India being a numbers game. We'll let you guys go in a second. But do you find? You've got a Naqshi in with you now as well, driving your socials and stuff like that. I mean, how important is socials to you guys, and the clip you identify to get people through the door to your show, and which ones do you
today?
How much do you worry? Oh, look, I'm obviously leading here, but do you worry that your brand is primarily represented through the clips you choose to fuck people in the face with?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Sorry.
You're very aware of it, aren't you? Like the click, because obviously
Because you're
would take the clip
interacting with
in.
an algorithm, and you know that
Yeah.
provocation drives interest. I mean, like, but the show's not meant to just be known as provocative, but we get people through the door if we choose
Calm,
to.
reasoned
Yeah,
40-second
good luck.
Instagram clips that, let me tell you my balanced view. Ooh, sign
That's
me
right.
up.
It limps to 50 likes, and
That's it. Yeah, it's difficult terrain. We've been historically nowhere near as good as at this as we should have been. So we've limped along more generally on socials, which is a great disappointment to us. But we are recovering the situation since Anakshi came on board. She's got a really good handle on what's going on in India, having grown up there and played cricket over there and whatnot. So that's helping. But it shouldn't be that alone, should it? I sometimes fear that if you only have a social media strategy that's geared around trying to get clicks from India, then you're probably missing a trick as well, because the vast majority of people who consume Geoff and my podcast are listening, not watching, and thus they are on Apple or Spotify or whatever, and that audience is overwhelmingly in Australia or the UK. So, it's balancing act that we haven't ever quite gotten right, but we're getting a little bit better.
And what's your strategy, guys, to evolve your show to match the evolution of the game to T20 franchise cricket? What's the plan?
Yeah, I mean, we're like dinosaurs who are inviting the asteroid. I think we just
He must love it.
We just fundamentally can't bring ourselves to give a shit about 20 over cricket. Like it's fine. I mean, doing the T20 World Cup was interesting to a point, but I don't remember a T20 match that I've watched ever. I don't remember anything. It all just vanishes. But I remember every test I've seen.
Yeah.
We've got the same date, don't we? There's a moment in time when things changed. It was the Brisbane Test match of 2021, and there was a moment. Unquestionably, there was a moment that we didn't seize, which you did spectacularly well with in moving into IPL and moving into coverage of Indian cricket in a more sophisticated way.
And it's been smooth too.
It's been really smooth
sailing.
Yeah.
The whole
But we didn't seize that moment.
And
you know what?
I didn't want it.
And I didn't want it enough. No, we didn't want it. We talked about
Still
it.
don't.
We did talk about it. We could go all in. You know, the however many hundreds of thousands of people that watched the final day video at the Gabba. We'd never really even used YouTube until that series, and suddenly we're banking these massive numbers, tens of thousands of subscribers, and like, what do we do with it? And we didn't do the thing that we could have done next, and we just had to live with that. And when we do come to Indian series where there's going to be a natural audience for it, we do play catch up because we haven't over the time between, we haven't done the IPL in any meaningful way, and that's fine because, like Geoff said,
fatigue. It's the only time in an international cricket, because fundamentally we do international cricket. That's the block. That's where it stops.
Yep.
Like maybe New Zealand go play Pakistan or something, and there's a little bit to do, but that's the 2 months almost where I don't have to think about cricket very much because I'm not going to watch that league, because I don't watch any of the leagues. I'm not taking time off to watch the CPL or the Big Bash or WBBL anymore. Like it's impossible. You can't follow all of the cricket. And so it was like, do I agree to sacrifice the only time in the year when I don't have to think about cricket every day in order to think about cricket every day? Like, I will shoot myself. Like it's not sustainable.
It's when the book got written as well. The book got written during the IPL, and other creative projects next year will probably happen in that quarter of the year when the IPL dominates. But your wider question is right. Like, the probability of enormous Saudi investment is troubling as far as what it'll mean for the game. I don't think, and you talk to administrators about this, and you talk to players who are willing to be more open about it. They all know that there is going to be untold wealth for a certain number of cricketers, and that is going to be an intervention as big as the IPL was when it started. We've got another revolution coming. It's just about in what form it takes place, how it either works with the system as it is, and I think that's the desire. I was at that Cricket Connects conference earlier this year, and there's a big thing about the Saudi Arabian money working within the game as it is, or sitting completely outside of it, and we've got fucking chaos. That is just as likely. So, I think we're now just waiting for that moment in time, and that's not very nice. That's going to compromise everything that we've grown up loving. We spoke earlier about love for Test cricket. Seeing it spliced into sort of 4 windows, like the 4 Grand Slams of tennis or the 4 majors of golf, and effectively accepting that 9 to 10 months a year will be the domestic T20 circuit. That's not really what I'm interested in. Geoff said before that, what might the future look like? I mean, that's again, I'm interested in how you see that, because you'd be experiencing it as we are as well. We've got this thing we've done and we've built up. If the conversation moves almost exclusively time-wise to domestic T20, not just the IPL, but myriad other leagues that are IPL adjacent. Then what?
We're not the only people to be sitting there waiting for a Saudi execution, though. So.
I think it's analogous to what we were talking about before about short-form content on the internet. Now, like, more people consume you in those bite-sized things, somewhat out of context because they're all part of broader conversations, right? And so more people consume you that way, in the same way that more people consume T20 cricket. But the people that are going to buy this book, that come to your meetups, to go to your live shows, they will listen, they'll consume the whole thing. It's a richer experience than that. And, you know, it's a bit old man yelling at the cloud, which you don't want to be, because we grew up in a certain, you know, just loving Test cricket, and that's what culturally is significant to our generation, right? But things are changing, but I still feel like when there's substance to a thing, like, and that's part of my frustration with how that Test match ended the other day, or what I fear the series might become, where it's essentially 4 T20s wrapped up into, like, because my attention span's so TikTokified.
Split innings T20s. Is frothing.
Oh, you know, people talking about, you know, Test matches turning into 4 T20s, whatever. It's like, get in the fucking bin. But, you know, I'm talking about, like, substance. Actually, you know, people that love your show, they love you guys talking for an hour. You know, it's not because you had a great take for 30 seconds on Instagram.
No. It is the long form. And I think a really important thing to do for people like us, for people who enjoy what we do, is stop apologising for substance, because there's so much self-criticism, and cricket is terrible at this. Everyone who works in cricket goes, cricket fucking sucks. It takes too long. It's impossible to sell. No one likes it. And it's like, that's not true. Oh, kids only like T20 cricket. We were all kids, and we got into Test cricket at 5 or 6 years old, watching it on TV. It is possible for children to be interested in things that are complex and that take time. It doesn't all have to be Peppa Pig. It's possible for people to enjoy things that are more in depth, that are longer, that take more effort, to read books, to listen to long podcasts. And that may not be what the majority of the audience is doing, and that's fine. Let the majority of the audience go and entertain themselves with whatever they want. It's still valid to do something that is longer form. And I think there is so much apologising for and detracting from and undermining the things that they spend their own time producing. And I think we've got to be proud of what we do and say, stop talking it down, stop worrying about the people who don't like it, make it for the people who do like it, and be proud of that fact.
I completely agree. I mean, our interest in India is purely commercial. No, our interest in India is like primarily driven by it was the first, you know, we'd never engaged with India. Like, we wanted to see what it was like, wanted to see where the rubber hit the road in cricket. You know, when you're, you know, in the Anglo sphere, not an insider in the game, you just hear about India. You conceive of its power in the abstract from the outside. They've got X population, and these people run the show in this kind. You know, BCCI run the show in a shadowy way that you don't know how it manifests, but that it does. And the Indian players' attitudes are a lot more, you know, uppity than they used to be. So you see these manifestations of power, but you don't actually know how the mechanics of it work. That was a huge driver for us for getting into it, of going like, well, let's make some friends. Let's go there. Let's watch the IPL. Never watched it in our fucking lives. It happened when we were asleep. The lights and the hue of the light is weird, and they've got weird sponsors. You know, all these kind of prejudice.
Everyone's
kind
shiny
of
and
yeah, that's right. And the
like
lids are gold, and
Kievs
that's weird, and you know, kitsch and like, and so we were just curious. We was like, we want to know how this works, and there was also probably a driver around wanting to be current with the game. You know, like for us doing the IPL year on year, it becomes a grind. And I mean, any fan who doesn't admit that is you know, truly evangelical. Like we wanted to know what sat behind teams and the rhythm of it, and we wanted to meet people who actually make these decisions. And you speak to players, you know, it contextualizes international games for us. You know, where players have been, what movements they've had. You can speak to them properly about what the IPL experience is for them. It goes for so long, and then they're getting tied to franchises that are being dropped, like a live golf tour in different countries and stuff. So I feel like there's an onus on understanding how it works a little bit, just to even cover the cricket that we do like. But like you guys, you know, it doesn't get me going. It just doesn't. You know, it doesn't like Test cricket.
And the Saudi bit, I mean, I just wonder, I mean, I know it's isolating one pot of money, one extremely big pot of money, but I wonder where the game will there be any dissent Like, I just don't know whether there will be.
We've
'Cause
spoken
in
to
golf-
players who are like, yeah, bring it on. It's all just like, you know,
Yeah,
you know,
it's,
like
it's all
whatever.
just great. I almost get it from a player's perspective. They're not being asked to be moral arbiters. But although in saying that, they have been historically, right? Athletes have over time taken positions that are adverse to their own financial interests. Boycotts, you know, apartheid in our game most obviously, but not just that. Usually led by government, but still, like, I wonder whether there will be any dissent, or when it arrives, it will be so warmly embraced in similar ways to live golf that everything that sits underneath it will be ignored. I'm a little bit worried that you know, yelling into the void might be what we're doing, and there'll be no one really listening.
I think that's part of it, right, Collo? Because like it feels like this thing that we all love is getting taken away, and we are powerless to it. You know, because we've spoken to players privately who find going to those franchise tournaments really difficult. Like, they don't even have a love for the team they're playing for, the thing they're doing. You know, that makes it hard as a fan to like support the direction of when the players are saying to you like, don't rate it. You know, and so that's difficult. You know, in the same way that like when names and numbers came on the back of the test match jerseys, right? It's like, this is catering to people that are semi-interested in it, and the people that already love it have a diminishing appreciation for the thing that they love. Now, like, ultimately, more people like the sport, which is good. So I feel, so I get I'm sort of oscillating between those two ideas. Yeah.
So
yeah.
how much is that?
Well, it's packaged for entertainment principles, really.
Yeah, I mean, you want to go full circle. You go back to the thing I did the other week with, because they're all younger, and they go, "You guys are fucking old."
Yeah.
They would say, "What the fuck is wrong with you guys?" They would say that
we're old.
We are the problem.
Yeah.
They would see us
100%.
40 odd, early 40s, whatever. We are the issue. We are the roadblock towards a much better world for them.
Yep.
And I'm always mindful of that too. That, you know, it's a bit like when people who are our age get stuck into Triple J when the hottest 100 comes out each year. Like,
Not made for you.
Not made for you. You don't
Stone
deserve
Temple
to care.
Pilots didn't win.
You don't,
that's
you don't
right.
deserve you haven't earned the right to care anymore about a youth radio station when you're in your 40s, right?
Yeah.
And I am aware when I talk about these topics that I'm not a representative sample of the future. I am an emblem of right now and soon enough the past, which is difficult to reconcile because I don't want to be old, but you know, it is what it is. I don't know. It's really difficult terrain. But
It's like when the singer from Leonardo's Bride went on The Voice or something. It was like, you don't fucking belong here. You don't need to debase yourself to this.
quite.
And Triple J did used to be good. It's sort of. I know what you're
King's
saying.
Milk, you know, has a lot to answer for. It's even there.
He curated our youth and our childhood.
Yeah, that's right.
He kept
Bring it
a
back.
job till he was 54, so there's something to inspire.
Yeah.
But I seem to love Double J now, but I don't know.
It's a real
There's
shame.
better
It really,
choices.
really fell away after I
Yeah.
turned 27. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I do think it's an outstanding question. I hate to anchor it back to Saudi stuff again, but I think it's an outstanding question because you see it a bit with footy in America, right? You know, we apologise for ourselves so much with footy, and again, reticent to talk about football on a cricket show because God knows I do it enough on the final word. But, you know, there is an obsession with whatever is going on in the States and trying to place it over the top of a game that we all love, or people in Melbourne and on our side of the Brassy line love. And we feel like we need to, there's something about the intersection between what's going on at home and that cultural cringe that was spoken of in the 1980s and 1990s, which I still think is very real in Australia. I still think it's very real that we defer elsewhere, that we don't feel sure of ourselves, that we think we're a bit inferior at some deeper level, and that's why we act out sometimes. So I'm interested how that will relate to the evolution of cricket when it becomes even more commercialised with the next wave of money. I think all these things are kind of wrapped up within the same debate.
Well, let's finish it up. What do you both think of wild card round?
Wildcard round is
that what it's called?
a fucking disgrace.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Wildcard round.
Well, you're just showing your age, guys.
and the 150th
I get more exercised about the sesquicentenary test match being played at night.
150th anniversary test being a day-night test match when there have been like 20 of those in history compared to the 2,500.
How is that going to go?
Yes.
It's going
How's
to
it
go
going
in
to
2.5 days. They're going to fly these 80-year-olds from London from Heathrow out to Tulla.
Yeah.
They're going to go to the cricket for 2.5 days.
But what about in
What are they gonna
AFL
do?
season? I
Which
mean,
is
how
right.
are we going to get? Is CA just lining itself up to receive a truth about Australians' views next to AFL?
I think they'll be okay. I think it's early enough in March that they'll be all right on that front. But
Cheap tickets. Basically giving them away.
But it's going to be over in 2 days. They're going to have a day night of. They're starting it on the Thursday, the Wednesday or the Thursday. They're not going to make the weekend.
Oh, true.
It's just they're
Okay, so
nuts.
it's only going to get in.
You
it's
want
only
you
cross
want
with the
a
agenda
flatty
setters.
and you want day night. You want a day game so that you at least make it through the weekend.
And the mystique,
it's
yeah.
insane.
Again, I would love the game, the bat and ball bit to have been more important for that fixture, but it's not. And I know that Todd Greenberg inherited that decision. By the way, it wasn't his call. But you can't unscramble. I don't think there is, because they've committed to a whole bunch of corporate pieces around it. I think heart of hearts, I doubt Todd Greenberg really believes in it, because he's a cricket person. And cricket people are like, why the fuck are they playing it at night?
Yeah.
And
Was anyone calling for a 150 year anniversary? I mean, when you make 150, you half raise the bat.
yeah, that's,
Well,
man.
we did
I
argue
agree.
for it, because they made a big deal out of the 100th Test match.
Yeah, I'm happy
and a big
with
deal out of the
100.
centenary
100.
Test. The
My
150 will be
son can
special,
watch
but
it.
It's purely selfishly, Sam, that we're not going to be alive for the
next one.
200th
Yeah.
one
No.
in
yeah.
2077,
Yeah.
and this is our only chance to have a semi-milestone. We missed the first one by a few years on one side, and we're going to miss the other one, hopefully not by too long, on the other side. So
Well,
this
once
was
someone
our chance.
think of the millennials, that's really
Exactly.
where we're at.
We're doing the Riyadh Comedy Festival next year. If you guys wanna come along, by the
There's
way.
gonna be a Riyadh Cricket Festival soon. Well, actually, when you think about it, they do have a.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
They have a Denny's there.
Riyadh comedy. It's a barrel of laughs.
They've got a Denny's there.
They got a Greg Chappell Cricket Centre there. All right, you guys aren't touching that. I like it. Gents, thanks for coming in for the crossover. It is Bedtime Tales for Cricket Tragic. If you like to get behind the final word on a commercial basis, and there is a lot of money in books. We have figured that out. So
Everybody gets rich with books.
exactly.
that's why we did it. We did it.
Yeah,
for free.
money.
Yeah.
The untold riches.
Yeah,
Yes.
several more tales
that
than the
will
one that you talked about.
probably pay for some of the several months of work that we spent on it.
And you know what? Like, we're genuinely so proud of you blokes. Like, you have been the gold standard. You've been the industry leader, and obviously we've all remained great mates the whole way through. Like, sincerely, like, every time you go to that next level, we are chuffed for you.
Bullshit. You
We
guys
hate
fucking hate it.
The beef
Yeah, we
is
fucking
real.
cut that out,
The
Charlie.
beef is real.
Yeah, that goes, Charlie. But it's true. I just wanted to say that on the end, that it is remarkable. They talk about unicorns in enterprise. Like, you are the unicorn, and we're very happy to have our thing, and we love our thing. But it's it's worth just saying, given it's been a collaborative episode, it's going on our feed as well. It's special what you've been able to carve out, and we're glad to have been
That's a
part of that.
disgusting comment.
Part of that
Uncomfortable
ride with
collar.
you at different points.
Usually,
cucked at the end.
Don't cut.
Usually the unicorn is one person who joins two, not two who
Let's
joins.
not talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
who's joined all. But, that's a different.
It's a legal matter.
No, thanks, gents, for coming into the studio as well. And I have been a long time listener of the Final Word as well. You guys are the most knowledgeable, prolific guys out there, and you bring a love to what you do that is basically missing everywhere else as well. So, keep on trucking.
Nice.
Famously.
Nice.
Nice finish, Pezza. Cheers, boys.
See you later.
Thanks, choppers.